Welcome everyone this week to Reimagining the Magic. I'm Katie.
I'm Julie.
And this week we're going to talk about a concept called greenwashing and how it applies to movies and theme parks. Most notably Disney right now, but it could really apply to any of them. First, we would like to thank all of our new followers and everyone on social media. We definitely appreciate the feedback we got in the Star Wars upload.
Oh yeah, like, man, some people delved way more into the Reylo thing than I thought they would.
It's like,
just like, I was like, whoa! And unfortunately, I didn't really have time to get on this week and like get in there and talk to people, but I will in the future.
We really started something with that.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed reading everyone's comments. It was fantastic. I was just like, oh, I want to talk, but I'm getting ready for a business conference this week, so it's been, real jobs and all that.
So, thank you, and you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, everywhere, and definitely, participate in the comments, do whatever you like, and we see it. Even if we don't directly comment ourselves, we do see it. So, definitely do that. And again, we have to thank our sponsor, Breach, that's BREACH.TV. You are soon to be home for podcasts, music, movies, entertainment, and more. And everything you upload, you can qualify for monetization if you have a working PayPal account. So far, we've been making money off of our podcasts on there, unlike other platforms.
YouTube.
Where now the goalposts have been moving even further away, where we could never hope to reach it.
Right. Oh yeah. No. We thought we might eventually get there, but now YouTube's just like, small creators, nah.
Even though we do upload, usually it's at least half an hour to an hour, and enough people watch that adds up, but YouTube's retention isn't that good.
Yeah, especially for audio content, so
Breach is where it's at right now, and we're definitely grateful for them and thanking them for supporting us. And we're going to skip the Disney news because that ties directly into what we're talking about this week.
Yeah, the news is the story.
Yeah, so if you've seen online with vloggers and stuff who go around the Disney parks or even Disney's own announcement, baby tigers have been born in Animal Kingdom.
Mm-hmm.
And that is problematic.
Yep, we're gonna talk about greenwashing at the Disney parks today.
Yeah, if you don't know what greenwashing is, it's a kind of a polite term for people using things like conservation and protecting the environment and stuff, and using those concepts to make people feel good about being a consumer of something, when in reality they're doing little to nothing to actually help.
Mm-hmm.
There's some, a lot of times you may see the most common examples with stuff that you see in stores. It's like, oh, it's eco-friendly, it's environmentally friendly. Not so much. That one product might be, but you don't know the conditions of the factory it's made in, or anything about the business, if they're environmentally friendly or not. That paper towel may, be biodegradable, but the factory it's made in could have made a whole bunch of pollution.
Yeah.
So it's a means of companies use to try to make you feel good enough about doing something and giving them your money where you don't feel guilty about it. And it's really definitely nowadays, it's applied to things with animals and attractions with animals and movies with animals. I will say though, when you see a movie that says, no animals were harmed, that's a good thing that comes into place because laws are put in place after animals used to be killed in movies in the early days of film. So, and after enough people got upset about that, now there's people who are professionals who supervise animals on film sets who can say, if an animal is harmed, it doesn't get that seal of approval.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to be careful watching these films. And I know animated films make fun of it, saying oh, no, animated whatever was harmed. And it's a joke. But it's still something people should take seriously, because remember when A Dog's Purpose was out, there was a lot of controversy over some of the scenes with the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, I love that book. I never went and saw the movie. I adore the book. If you've never read A Dog's Purpose, it's pretty good, especially if you're a dog lover. But I never went and saw the movie because of the controversy.
You know what movie does not have no animals were harmed in the making of this film?
Please don't tell me.
Milo Notice.
Really? I was going to say, please don't tell me Homeward Bound, because I'm going to be sad.
No, that one does, and if you really watch that movie, especially now in HD, you watch it carefully, you can tell when they use, stuffed animals and puppets and stuff for the stunts, you can tell. Like, remember the part in Homeward Bound where Chance gets hit by the porcupine?
Yeah.
You can tell that those quills were, like, stuck on with spirit gum.
Yeah. I was thinking about that scene the other day. I haven't watched that movie in years, but...
So you can tell, like, nothing was hurt. Like, the scene where, like, Sassy, you know, is, like, flung around and thrown stuff. Those were all puppets and stuffed animals and stuff. That movie was very carefully done.
Mm-hmm.
But Milo and Otis doesn't get that because Milo and Otis is not an American film.
Really?
It's Japanese. I think the original title is Chataran, and it's an old film. It's much longer in Japanese. It's a whole different story. And the people who worked on it in Japan could not confirm nor deny, A, how many animals were used in the making of the film, how many animals may have been harmed, and if any animals died or not. And then there's a lot of people saying that there are way too many cats playing Milo, and if you watch carefully, you can tell the difference. Because an orange cat is not just an orange cat. That there's enough different Milos that people are like,
Right.
And there's some deleted scenes that show up if you look online that didn't make the final cut, where you're really like, So, yeah, Disney has been very good when it comes to their live-action stuff with animals and having the right people on set, good trainers. You know, in the park, before Animal Kingdom opened, there was a joke with the cast that the horses were given better conditions than the human cast members. You know the horses who pull the buggies down Main Street and stuff like that?
Yeah.
That, like, in both parks, that the horses were given better treatment because if it's too hot out, they don't bring the horses out. If it's raining, they don't bring the horses out. Anything slightly off, they don't bring the horses out. And the horses are kept in nice, you know, cushy barns and everything, giving the best vet care. And so, of course, the cast of joke is saying, it's like, man, I have to be out in the rain. I have to be out in the hot and the cold. But then, first controversy struck up when Epcot happened and had the Living Seas. And it only got worse when Animal Kingdom happened.
Mm-hmm.
The Living Seas is questionable, especially the older version of it, where you could just see how the tanks were laid out, the dolphins.
Right.
The dolphins is... We're going to talk more about dolphins and whales at a later podcast, because that's an issue very near and dear to our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
But you can just tell that enclosure, there's 4 dolphins. They're all males.
Mm-hmm. I've seen them. They are very, very funny to watch. They have distinct personalities.
The old man of the group, you can spot the old man because he has some nicks and scratches all up along him because he's been around the block.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But because there's 4 males, it shows Disney has no intention to breed them, which is a positive.
Right, they're a bachelor pod, right?
They're a bachelor pod, that's exactly correct. They're a bachelor pod, they play, they interact. But I've seen the layout of the building and their tank. For that number of dolphins, it's still kind of small.
It is. And
the manatees, their enclosure looks small because we see like the main show area. But if you look carefully, there are a couple of trapdoors to a back pool, so it's larger. But unlike dolphins and cetaceans, which are usually very fast-moving, agile animals, manatees are like cows. They're slow-moving, grazing creatures. Mm-hmm. They don't need a lot of space. They're happy to sit in the same spot if they just have food dumped on them.
Yeah. Oh, and last time I was there, one of them had a pretty messed up tail. Like, probably couldn't move fast if it wanted to. So
yeah, they've confirmed, and I've seen the paperwork. All of the manatees at Epcot, the Living Seas, they're all rescues. They're all ones deemed for one reason or another they can't go back in the sea, and the one with the ruined tail is an obvious one.
Right. Boat strike, I assume.
Yep, got cut off in a boat. So they're just not fit. But unlike whales and dolphins, those manatees can sit in one spot and just be given food dumped on them, and they're not going to care.
Yeah, they're just like, give me lettuce, please.
Give me my grazing food, I need it. And since the revamp, they've gotten better with how they have the tanks and the setup with the different fish. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to pretend to know how many fish have lived and died during the years of Living Seas. I don't want to think about it personally. But the real problematic park is Animal Kingdom. Because if people don't know their Disney history, when Walt made Jungle Cruise, he didn't originally want animatronics, he wanted live animals. Mm-hmm. But after he was cited issues with having live animals in such an attraction, between the safety and the maintenance and the upkeep of the animals, and the fact most of the animals he wanted are nocturnal, so they'd be asleep during the day and it's not very exciting, he opted for something that was always guaranteed to be up and about, animatronics. And then Eisner happened.
Yep. And then Animal Kingdom came along.
Then he really wanted to compete with I cannot pronounce it to save my life. I think it was like Anheuser-Busch.
Yeah, Busch Gardens.
The people who originally owned Busch Gardens and SeaWorld, they used to also own SeaWorld. They now only own Busch Gardens, but at the time, they owned Busch Gardens and SeaWorld.
Right. If you've ever seen, like, Jack Hanna on anything, he's always talking about how he's affiliated with Busch Gardens.
Jack Hanna, no!
Right.
Jack Hanna, no! Just like when I see Jeff Corwin with the Georgia Aquarium. Jeff Corwin, no! You traitor! But, Busch Gardens is in Tampa, so you don't think it's that big a deal, but it's close enough that it was giving Eisner some pause. Mm-hmm. And SeaWorld being in Orlando was giving Eisner some pause, because the goal was to keep everyone on the Disney property.
Right. Don't want them to go to the other parks. Orlando. Or what is it? Universal Studios Orlando. And
there's SeaWorld.
Putt Putt and Disney. Wait, no, that's a song from a musical. Never mind.
There is a theme park about the Bible.
In Orlando?
In Orlando.
Oh my gosh. Now I wish I'd known about that, because that would have been funny to go to.
I think that's one thing Disney won't touch.
Yeah, probably. I'm gonna assume that's a no for Disney.
But you can go and meet Jesus. So yeah, that's a thing, but that's one thing Disney won't touch. But yeah, so Animal Kingdom happened as part of a thing, and if you know your Disney trivia, the spot that's now Pandora was originally supposed to be part of the second phase called Beastly Kingdom, where they were going to incorporate mythical beings like dragons and unicorns and stuff like that. They had planned a roller coaster, which, if you went to Islands of Adventure, you saw Dueling Dragons, later became Dragon Challenge. That was a concept for Beastly Kingdom.
See, I want Beastly Kingdom. I don't know about anybody else. That sounds awesome.
If you remember the very, very early promotion for Animal Kingdom, you saw things in the promotion like dragons and a thing with dragon fire, because it used to be like a little boat ride around the tree where they had a little spot where like it looks like a dragon spitting out fire, but they got rid of that pretty early on after the park opened. And Beastly Kingdom wound up not happening because Islands of Adventure opened, and it had been so long, a lot of the Imagineers that had been working on the project left, went to Universal, and took the idea with them.
Yep.
To an extent where when that park opened, Eisner walked around, he's like, and scrapped.
I'm so sad about that. I want to see some unicorns. I think we mentioned this before, that I would just love a park filled with unicorns and mermaids and dragons, but maybe someday. Maybe we'll open our own park someday, and I can fill it with all the mermaids and unicorns and dragons I want.
So the choice was, because they ran out of budget, was to open up to make Beastly Kingdom open that up, or Dinoland. They chose Dinoland because guess what came to theaters 2 years after Animal Kingdom opened? Dinosaur! So Eisner went with what he could market well. Even though that movie turned out to suck. But it's still there, and it's always felt out of place to people.
Right. Well, and dinosaurs are like perennially popular. Like, they're never going to go away.
But you see what's essentially a zoo, and then then dinosaurs, and now it's only worse with Pandora. Right.
So what Disney does with this whole Animal Kingdom thing, I mean, obviously they've got animals on the property, but they have a place what's called Rafiki's Outpost or something like that.
Rafiki's Conservation Watch.
So they have a bunch of educational stuff in there for the kids, and they basically lay out all this good stuff that they're doing for the environment. Like, oh, look how good we are, and they're really not. It's just a cover.
They do some things. They give a lot of money to other groups that do work out in like Africa and Asia and stuff. They do give money, and when they shoot their documentaries, they do a lot of work to make sure everything is filmed ethically. Unlike, okay, you know that thing like lemmings jump off a cliff?
Yeah.
That's a Disney thing. Disney made that up.
Really?
Disney made that up.
Oh my gosh.
So they don't do that anymore. But
you learn something new every day.
But so yeah, it's like they do things in the wild, but what they try to do is they try to conflate that the stuff going on in Animal Kingdom has a direct effect in what they're doing in the wild. The two are not related whatsoever at all. And I'm literally like I'm gesturing with my hands to try to show like they're not related whatsoever. Unless they specifically specify, and you would know because it would make like headline news worldwide, if any animal born in Animal Kingdom did have an intent purpose to be re-released back in the wild, it'd be a big deal.
Right. And the problem is they don't have conservationists of that kind there, I guess. People that it takes very special training to get an animal, especially one born in captivity, ready for release into the wild, and there's just not a program there for that.
There really isn't, and the same can be applied to any zoo. I'm going to be honest with you. Any zoo that you see that has baby animals, especially in baby endangered animals, unless they give you, because they kind of have to, unless they give out the plan about how this is going to be re-released into the wild, and they're working with an affiliated program in the wild habitat to bring them over there, and yada yada. Animals that are part of an endangered species outside of America, outside of North America, especially in like Asia and Africa and stuff, in Australia, have no effect on helping the endangered or nearly extinct wild population. No effect whatsoever. There's even a thing right now. There are more tigers in the United States than, like, especially specifically Bengal tigers in the United States, than in their wild habitat.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a problem. And that's between the zoos and circuses and people who own them as pets.
Mm-hmm. Private owners. And sanctuaries, wildlife sanctuaries.
Yeah, and sanctuaries, you'd like to think that they'd be able to do something to reintroduce them to the wild, but a lot of them they can't. They get animals that are old.
Old, or they're too used to people, or, you know, they've got one issue or another, and they're just not releasable, so they just have to live out their days in the sanctuary.
And that's a problem. And the reason I bring this up is Animal Kingdom announced that baby tigers were just born in Animal Kingdom, and those baby tigers, their life is Animal Kingdom.
Right, they will never know anything outside of it.
Unless, Disney has a program with another zoo, and they do what's called, a breeding loan, where they will bring an animal in or ship one out. They've been doing that all the time for years under the radar, moving animals around with other affiliated zoos that they work with.
Right.
So, and that's and not just, even non-endangered animals, like, it's just done to bring in people, because people love cute animals. That's why so many zoos have breeding programs, is because people will come in to see a baby tiger, or a baby elephant, or a baby gorilla, or something.
Mm-hmm.
They're not gonna come in, because they're animals that are critically endangered, that zoos are working to try to keep from going extinct, but they're not cute. No one cares if this rare species of lizard, or species of frog, or species of bird, they're getting to reproduce and make more. No one's going to care.
Right.
People care about tigers and pandas and wolves and elephants. And that's kind of a problem. That's where Disney is a huge, huge guilty party in greenwashing, because they want to make you think by going to Animal Kingdom and spending your money on a park ticket and anything else and going to see these baby animals born there, you are helping them save baby or regular tigers in the wild. You're not. Disney may be giving money to groups that work in, in India and Siberia and, and Malaysia and all the places these animals live. They may be doing that, but the money you give them that day, it's not going to that.
Right. It's going to the animals that are in the park.
And that's the only life these animals are going to know. And Disney, of course, they're a bit nicer about it. Like, you see the safari ride. All those animals have a nice space to roam. There are some enclosures that are kind of questionable, a little questionable when you get outside the safari area. You're kind of, because especially with all the stuff they do to make sure people can see the animals, and the fact that they put in all these rides, and you're like,
Right, yeah, because the animals are constantly subjected to animals can hear a lot of sounds that we can't, so they are constantly subjected to, like, the low rumbling from the roller coasters, rides that may have sound systems with low noises. They are very sensitive to that kind of stuff. So if they're in close proximity to it, they're hearing a lot of stuff we're not. It's very loud to them.
When Everest was constructed, and it's a thrill coaster, my immediate reaction was, Right,
yeah.
Because it's a fun coaster, don't get me wrong, it's a great coaster, but it is so close to so many animals.
Right.
And when that coaster is open to the public, they're not putting those animals backstage or away from it.
Mm-hmm.
They're just meant to deal with it. And and like even animals not near that coaster, not near where there's a lot of loud noises, like elephants. Elephants have big sensitive ears. They can hear for miles.
Mm-hmm.
You don't think the elephants wandering around the open savanna-ish part with the safari, they can't hear the screams off the coasters or the rumblings of the coasters or the rumblings from the rides in Pandora or the drum players in the African village? You don't think they can't hear that?
They totally can.
They can. They also know better than to stay out of the road because they can hear every time one of the vehicles approaches. They can hear miles away.
Yeah.
And they're smart enough to predict the patterns. It's like, oh, it's that time again. These things are going to come through my area. Better chill.
Right.
Of course, not every animal is that sensitive, but some are. Like, again, the elephants and the tigers are sensitive. They can feel the vibrations and whatnot.
Yeah.
And it's kind of interesting that the park has been open about 20 years now. And this is the first time they've really announced anything like baby tigers being born.
Mm-hmm. Which means that they may be ramping up a breeding program.
Because, and even though Pandora did bring more attendance to Animal Kingdom, it did not bring in as much as they would have hoped. So it looks like they're resorting to what other zoos and animal theme parks do to get in people.
Mm-hmm.
Babies.
Yep, lots and lots of babies. So I guess we'll have to look, see if we have an April the giraffe situation on our hands pretty soon.
Oh Lord. And we're gonna mention SeaWorld because they're probably the biggest. We're gonna have a whole podcast on SeaWorld and stuff in the future, but
right, they're Disney's biggest competitor in Orlando as far as animal showcasing goes.
And they've been under fire. Quite a bit since 2010 and a lot since 2013 because of the conditions they keep their animals in and the fact that the animals that they're keeping really were never meant to be kept in captivity.
Right, they're just not built for it. They can't do it.
And they're not even just on display for people to look at. A lot of them do shows.
Mm-hmm.
At least Disney doesn't do that. Well, they did with Flights of Wonder, but bird shows aren't terrible. Birds like to fly. Parrots like to be trained to do stuff. Like parrots like that. That's part of enrichment for parrots.
Right. Yeah, no, with birds it's different because you're asking them to do natural behaviors. Like I saw a bird show at Scarborough Renaissance Festival. I go every year because the name of the group that does it is Last Chance Forever. They're a conservation group out of, I believe, San Antonio, I think. And they do the bird show every year at Scarborough. And I love going to watch them because these people obviously care about the birds and have very deep connections with their birds. And they never ask them to do anything that is unnatural. They always ask them to do behaviors that are something that they would do naturally. They train, like hunting, they show how they hunt. They show how they'll have them fly. They'll have them just do certain things. But it's all natural behaviors that these birds would be doing anyway. So it's keeping them active and keeping their skills up, even though for whatever reason they're being rehabilitated. And they do eventually go for release if they can.
Did I tell you the time I went to Scarby and I saw one of the bird shows and I think it was a falcon. It went to do a fly around and it just kept flying and then bye.
No, and I'm sure it came back. It probably just went off and did what it felt like, and then eventually came back.
At the end of the day, I went up and asked them if it ever came back, and they said, yeah, it was gone for a couple hours. It went on a hunt and came back.
Yeah, that's just what they do. Like, they are so good with their birds. So yeah, I mean, stuff like that, those shows are usually great, especially if they're not doing now with parrots, it's a little different. Tricks are fine. They like that kind of thing. But with birds of prey, if they are doing natural skills, hunting, doing fly arounds, just things like that, showing how they hop across the ground or something, that kind of stuff is 100% fine because it's keeping them on their toes and keeping their natural skills up and not asking them to do anything that they wouldn't already be doing.
Exactly. And so I do give them some credit. They are working on things, but just there's a lot going on in that park, and I'm glad they don't have many animal shows, but the fact that they are breeding their animals is kind of a concern. And here's something, Scarborough Fair, they have that amazing, bird show with these great people, but then they have elephant rides.
Yeah, they do have, and they are separate groups. To be fair, they are not related in any way.
The people who do the elephant and camel rides are part of a touring company that does fairs. They go to the fairgrounds and stuff to do the rides. And it's problematic. If you ever go anywhere that has like elephant rides and it's like taking the elephant and you're riding the elephant in a circle, and the big thing you'll see is the people carrying a bullhook. No. No.
Because it's the only thing that they can feel through their...
It's the only thing that the people who control them, the people don't feel comfortable with the animals doing free contact, so they control the animals through pain.
Right.
And while there are zoos around that still do that, unfortunately, because it's how keepers, especially novice keepers, feel safe, more and more zoos are doing like what's called open contact or free contact, where it's just positive reinforcement. They don't make, animals like elephants do things they don't want to do, and they don't use pain to get them to do what they want to do or to punish bad behavior. They don't do that.
Right.
And if you want to learn more about that, there is a documentary film called An Apology to Elephants. It was released through HBO. You can find it online. You can also find, I think it's still on Netflix, it's called Tyke, Elephant Outlaw. It's specifically about an elephant named Tyke that was part of a circus and a show didn't go very well. The animal became enraged and killed one of its trainers and dashed off not only into the crowd, but it ripped out of the area of the performance and ran into the street and trampled down the street. It it smushed vehicles and stuff. And they didn't stun it. Ty got taken down by police shooting her to death.
Mm-hmm.
And so the movie talks about that, and it talks about how the circus has an effect on elephants like that. And it goes into things about, proper handling of those animals in captivity.
Right. So what we want to do is just make sure that everyone listening is aware that these things do happen and that Disney is not fully, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Exposing is the word that I thought of. They're
not completely transparent.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. They're not completely transparent about everything that they do. So they are
a for-profit company.
Right. Yeah. So if you do have a place in your heart for the animals and you want to put your money where it counts, don't go to Animal Kingdom. Just don't. I mean, I didn't go last time I was there. I don't feel like I missed anything.
And if you do, when you do go to stuff like the conservation station, talk to the people, ask them directly, what programs are you doing in the wild in these habitats? How much money is going to them? Mm-hmm. Because if Disney is doing things, these staff would know that and they'd be able to disclose the information to you.
Right. Hold them accountable. Now, obviously, don't be jerks to the staff because they're not all of them are the scientists. Some of them are just cast members. But try and hold them accountable. Maybe that cast member you talked to didn't know the answer and went and looked it up later. May have found that their idea of what was going on didn't match up with reality, and maybe they'll learn something from it.
And another thing is, there are zoos and attractions that call themselves sanctuaries. And they're not. When you see something called itself sanctuary, do your research, look up, make sure it is an established nonprofit. Every animal sanctuary is a nonprofit. And it'll tell you where the money goes. And if any place offers you photos with baby animals and lets you feed baby animals, especially like baby tigers and stuff, run.
Mm-hmm.
No, you're not. They may say, oh, this money's going to help. No, it's not.
No, it's going to breed more baby tigers because baby tigers grow up into adult tigers eventually.
And here's a fun fact about tigers. White tigers, as you see them in captivity, do not exist in the wild. They are not albino. White tigers exist because the first one came as a cross between a Bengal tiger and a Siberian tiger, and those genetics not exactly getting along. So while some come out very pretty, more often than not, if a white tiger is born, every white tiger has issues. It has deformities. It has developmental issues. A lot of them are deaf or blind or have some kind of dysfunction.
That's really interesting because in house cats, white cats often are also often, was it deaf? Yeah, deaf.
It's not a positive trait you want to be breeding into felines especially. So when you see a white tiger, they're gorgeous and amazing and stunning, but that is not something that happens in the wild. The first white tiger became known when in captivity they bred a Siberian with a Bengal. So that's a thing. And if you look up white tigers and you see pictures of ones that look, I hate to say the word, but derpy, that's why.
Yeah. So I think this one's just kind of a short show, so I think
But we're gonna talk into the movie ethics, because this is where Finding Nemo and Finding Dory kind of come into play for a sec.
Mm-hmm.
Because you know how the point, like, you know how much, like, Nemo in the tank, they wanted out of the tank and they wanted to be back in the ocean, and
Mm-hmm.
Finding Dory was all about rehabilitate, release. It's like, you know, get them back in the ocean. Yet so many people want to keep Nemos and Dorys.
Nemos do fine in captivity, but Dories, they are regal blue tangs. They do not do well in captivity. In fact,
There's no captive breeding program for blue tangs at all.
no, because the programs all fail. They cannot. It is so difficult to get blue tangs to breed in captivity that most are captured from the wild, and they take very special care to take care of them. And people will go to a pet store, find a blue tang, be like, oh, it's a dory, let's get the dory. And then the fish dies within like a couple of months because people have no idea how to take care of them. They're very delicate fish.
Yeah, they may look small when you first see them in a store, but blue tangs can grow to be over a foot long.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to have the tank to accommodate that. That's why usually when you see a blue tang in an aquarium, they're not in a small tank. They're in a big one, even if they look small.
Right.
Because they're going to grow. And clownfish are bred in captivity. Not every type of clownfish is successful. So if you are interested in getting a clownfish, first of all, do your research on setting up a saltwater tank.
Right, because saltwater tanks take a ton of work. I mean, I know somebody that has one, and boy, was it a ton of work getting it set up.
You cannot just go to a store, whether it's a pet store or even a store specialized in fish, and then just buy some fish, buy a tank, buy something, and set up right away. That's not how it works.
Right, you have to set up the tank first, then you have to cycle it for like 3 weeks before it's ready, before like the ammonia levels and everything settle.
That's for a tiny tank. For the average tank, you're talking months of an empty cycling tank.
Yeah, like it takes forever to get those tanks ready for fish, and then you have to make sure you populate it with enough hiding places. Like here, let me tell you. I'll tell the story. This, so my boss has this saltwater tank, and I've seen it a couple of times. And when she first got it, she had three brittle starfish in it. And she got the whole setup, fish and everything, from another owner who was just like, I don't want to deal with it anymore. I just need it gone. It'll be $2,000 for the whole thing. And anyway, so they got it set up and they got it going and they got fish in there, and the brittle starfish were hunting the other fish. She woke up one night, and just went out to, I get a drink, I don't know, get a drink of water. So it's been a while since this happened. Walked by the tank and saw one of the brittle starfish in an attack position over one of the sleeping fish. Whoever put together this tank before had no idea that the brittle starfish would hunt their fish.
And this happens all the time. People don't research the type of fish they get before they put them together, and then act surprised when like one eats the other.
Right?
And this is just the kind of problem. There's a lack of education. The big stores like Petco and PetSmart, don't buy animals from them. The ones that do rescues for dogs and cats, by all means, do the adoption, but don't buy. There's a difference. Like the hamsters and the rodents, the reptiles, the fish, those aren't adoptions. That's purchase. They get them from suppliers. Mm-hmm. You don't know what conditions those animals came from. And when it comes to saltwater fish, unless they can show you proof and papers that these animals were bred in captivity and give you like breeder information, they're probably caught from the wild.
Right. Certain fish do amazingly in captivity, and you can get them anywhere and they're fine. But there are certain fish out there that are not easily bred in captivity. They're wild caught. They are rare. They're rare fish, and they just don't do well in aquariums. And I mean, as somebody who loves aquariums, loves the ocean, I have put in a lot of time. Like, I don't think I'll ever have a saltwater tank, but I've put a lot of time into learning what it takes to have one, because I think it's just interesting. And the more I learn about it, the less I want to have one. Like, the more I just am like, nope, gonna leave the fish in the ocean.
And the thing with hermit crabs is hermit crabs are not bred in captivity.
Really? I did not know that.
Yep. They are caught off the beaches. They are very hard to keep and breed in captivity. So when you see them in stores, especially when you see them at those like mall kiosks, no.
Yeah. Man, I remember when I was in elementary school, our library had a couple of hermit crabs, and so we used to like every now and then they would get the crabs out and like pass them around with a bunch of elementary school kids. That'd never fly now. Like it would never. That was in God, when was that? 90. It was the early 90s. So,
And hermit crabs can live a long time, especially if they have big enough shells to grow into and like, move around into. They can grow to be pretty big and live a long time. They're not pets.
no, they're not. I mean, and they don't even make interesting pets. Like they're just crabs. All they do is scuttle around.
Well,
Like you want an interesting pet, get a dog or a cat.
well, people say fish and hermit crabs are starter pets.
They're
No.
not. They are absolutely 100% not. Like you want a starter pet? Get a marmo. First of all, I love marmo. They're so fun. They don't do anything, but I mean, you still have to kind of take care of them because they are a living organism. They're algae, but they're just so much fun. I love my marmo.
Or get sea monkeys.
Sea monkeys. Oh yeah, sea monkeys. I saw some of those the other day at a store or something.
To a certain degree, even though you don't really have to take them to the vet, like, you're not, but cats are lower maintenance than fish.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. Unless they want to play, in which case they're all up in your face, and you're like, I'm working, and then they're just all over you, and then they're on your computer, and then the next thing you know, is Sticky Keys is on, and you don't know how to turn it off. So,
So, and you should hold aquariums accountable, like, aquariums that keep animals that are good for captivity and, do well in captivity should be applauded. I give credit to the Sea Life aquariums. They're affiliated with Legoland. Their parent company, I believe it's Merlin Entertainment, made a promise to phase out certain things. They started with their Sea Life facilities overseas that they decided to not do in North America, and phase out some practices they're doing in North America that they realize aren't good anymore. So
right.
they actually will show the money and how much they do to do rescue and rehabilitation. They do, I hate to say it, but when it comes to certain species, they do more rescue and rehab than SeaWorld does. And they're a younger company.
Right. Yeah, they're very committed to that.
And so while there is a Sea Life in a mall and that does raise some flags, it is a good facility. They take great care of their animals. I've had the privilege to go backstage and see the tanks and see how everything is set up and see all the work that goes into it. They take very good care of their animals. They have the paperwork of where all the animals were gotten. Most of them were bred in captivity or they are transferred from another facility. They're good. In contrast, a place opened up at a mall in Fort Worth.
Yeah, so the one we're talking about is in Grapevine, that's Sea Life in Grapevine, and then in Fort Worth, another company came in thinking they could do the same thing. It's called Sea Quest. Don't get them mixed up.
And yeah, they're offering for you to go snorkeling with rays.
Yeah,
Any place that offers for you to get into the water with animals is a no-no.
right.
I even object to touch tanks, but most places will have animals that can kind of put up within touch tanks, like sea stars and the urchins, like little things.
Yeah, and they usually have people watching, making sure you're not harassing the animals.
But other than that, did they have you like snorkeling or getting in the water? Even if you're a certified diver, no.
Yeah, I was shocked the first time I went to the Georgia Aquarium. I was shocked when they said you can make an appointment to come dive in our large tank with the whale sharks. I was like, "Whoa, what? That seems like a really bad idea. Like really bad idea, TM."
And it's any aquarium that offers you that kind of thing. There's one thing they offer you a behind the scenes tour where you can just see things and see how they keep their stuff and see their husbandry practices. But if they offer you a chance to get in the water with an animal, or even in zoos, they offer you a chance to really to touch an animal, especially an animal that's really should not be touched by regular people, and they offer you a chance to like feed and interact with them, that's a red flag. Mm-hmm. That is a huge red flag. It's one thing for like a zoo to like let you, hold a ball python. Ball pythons are also pets.
Right.
Ball pythons are docile. They are easily acclimated to people. Same thing for a bearded dragon lizard or a black-footed ferret. Ferrets, again, chinchillas. Those are all fine. Certain types of birds, that's all fine. And in aquariums, there are certain animals that, don't care as much. Like, you can pet a sea star or poke it at an urchin gently, and they don't really care.
Right.
But other animals, it's like they offer you for you to get up and close personal with whales or sharks or penguins, and you pay money, and No.
Yeah, it's just a money grab. And the thing about, turning it back to Finding Dory and Finding Nemo, Disney has never addressed the um, pet store rush that tends to happen after one of those movies comes out to get those kinds of fish.
So
Um,
many people see that, even though they completely miss the message of the movie, they're like, "Oh, I want a Nemo and Dory for my kids."
right, yeah, and Disney's never done anything to stop that or to say, even just like a blurb in the credits somewhere saying, these animals are hard to take care of. Please enjoy them in their natural habitat.
There's a little sign in the Seas Pavilion in Epcot. A little sign, a little one. There's a sign, but you have to go to Epcot to see it. But there's been a rush with like a lot of movies they make involving animals, like 101 Dalmatians. All the people who got Dalmatians.
After, yep, yeah, and they never address that. And so I'd say that's one of their weakest points is they don't feel I mean, and in some cases I would agree with this. It's not their fault that people go out and do that. Other people made that choice. Nobody made all these people go out and buy these breeds of dogs or these fish or whatever. But I think that if you're going to feature them in a popular film, you should at least put a blurb that says, these animals take a lot of work and care. Be sure, if you want to adopt one for yourself, make sure that you are fully ready for the commitment.
It's like these are not meant to be kept in captivity. That's the whole point of our movie.
Right, right. So anyway, that's kind of our show on the animals. We're cutting it a little bit short this week because we are actually recording 2 episodes this week. Katie will be out of town, so
I'll be out of town starting the week of Valentine's Day, and then for a couple weeks after. So we're condensing.
Yeah, we're condensing episodes. We're actually recording 2 tonight. So stick around. We'll see each other in just a few seconds, but we'll see you guys next week.
And definitely participate. Please share this. If you learned something new, let us know. If you have any inside information, or if you want to debate with us, please go right ahead. We want to learn new things because I've never worked at Animal Kingdom, so I don't know exactly what goes on there. So please, by all means, please educate. And thank you, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye!